I was murdered. I've been waiting a long time for someone to save me, but no one showed up. Claire had always been drawn to the sea. Growing up by the coast, she had spent her childhood exploring tide pools, fishing with her father, and diving into the mysteries of the deep. Now, as a 23-year-old marine biology student, the ocean was more than just a fascination, it was her life's work. When her professor mentioned a research opportunity on a remote island off the coast of Maine, she couldn't sign up fast enough. The island, Blackwood Isle, was rarely visited, mostly forgotten. Few boats dared to sail there, and the locals avoided speaking of it at all. Claire found their reluctance odd, but thrilling. The isolation, the mystery, it was exactly what she craved. The fisherman who ferried her to the island was a gruff, silent man, his weathered face creased with years of exposure to the elements. As they approached the shore, he broke his silence, his voice low and gravelly. "You sure about this, Miss?" Claire smiled. "It's just a few days. I'll be fine." His eyes flickered with something she couldn't place. Worry, perhaps? Or was it fear? "There's been stories," he muttered, his hands gripping the wheel tightly. "Things out here, they ain't right." She waved him off, eager to begin her research. "Thanks for the ride." With that, she jumped off the boat, her boots sinking into the wet sand. The island loomed ahead, wild and untamed. A thick forest stretched across the land, with towering pines that swayed ominously in the wind. The only structure visible was an old lighthouse at the island's northern tip, its paint peeling, windows broken, and door hanging off its hinges. Claire set up camp near the beach, her tent positioned just a few meters from the shore. The sound of the waves crashing against the rocks was calming, and the salty breeze filled her with a sense of adventure. She was here to study the island's marine life, to observe the unique ecosystem that had developed in its isolation. But as night fell, and the shadows grew long, a sense of unease settled over her. The first night was restless. Claire awoke several times, her heart racing, unsure of why. Each time she opened her eyes, the island was deathly silent, save for the distant groan of the wind through the trees. It felt like the island itself was watching her, waiting for something. By the third day, Claire had cataloged several species of fish, taken numerous water samples, and even photographed a rare jellyfish that seemed to glow under the surface. She felt accomplished but still unsettled. The island was beautiful, but there was something off about it, something she couldn't quite put into words. That evening, as she sat by her campfire, eating a simple meal of canned beans and bread, she noticed movement out of the corner of her eye. She whipped her head around, but there was nothing there, just the flickering shadows cast by the firelight. Still, the feeling of being watched persisted, gnawing at her nerves. Deciding to distract herself, Claire grabbed her camera and took a few shots of the beach, the dark waves crashing against the shore. As she lowered the camera, something caught her attention in the distance near the lighthouse. A figure. It was too far to make out any details, but it was definitely a person, standing still, staring out at the sea. Claire's pulse quickened. Who else could be on the island? The fisherman had assured her that no one lived here, that it was completely deserted. "Hello," she called out, her voice shaky. The figure didn't move. Claire's curiosity got the better of her, and she grabbed her flashlight, heading toward the lighthouse. The wind had picked up, the temperature dropping significantly as she trudged across the rocky beach. As she neared the structure, she saw the figure again, this time closer, standing at the base of the lighthouse. It was a man. His clothes were tattered, soaked with seawater, and his skin was pale, almost translucent. Seaweed clung to his limbs, and his eyes, those deep, hollow eyes, were fixed on her. Claire froze, her blood running cold. "Who are you?" she whispered, though she wasn't sure she wanted an answer. The man took a step toward her, his movements slow, deliberate. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Instead, a low, vibrating hum filled the air, so deep it made the ground beneath Claire's feet tremble. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but her body refused to move. She was rooted to the spot, trapped in the man's gaze. The hum grew louder, more distorted, like a droning chant. It filled her mind, drowning out all rational thought. And then, as suddenly as it had started, the sound stopped. The man was gone. Claire blinked, her heart pounding in her chest. She spun around, but the beach was empty. The lighthouse stood silently, its broken windows staring down at her like hollow eyes. Had she imagined it? Had the isolation finally gotten to her? She stumbled back to her tent, her mind racing. Sleep eluded her that night. The man's face burned into her memory. By morning, she had convinced herself it was just a hallucination, her mind playing tricks on her in the dark. But the next night, the hum returned. It started softly, a low vibration that seemed to emanate from the ground itself. Claire sat up in her tent, her breath shallow. The sound grew louder, more insistent, like a distant chant carried on the wind. She clutched her flashlight, her hands trembling. Suddenly, the zipper of her tent began to move slowly, deliberately, as if someone was unzipping it from the outside. Claire's heart stopped. She held her breath, watching in horror as the tent flap opened, revealing the night outside. There was no one there, but the hum was deafening now, vibrating through her skull. Tears filled her eyes as she crawled out of the tent, her flashlight beam shaking wildly as she scanned the beach. The hum seemed to be coming from all around her, as if the very island was alive with it. The wind howled through the trees, and the waves crashed violently against the shore. And then she saw him. The man from the lighthouse, standing at the water's edge, his eyes locked onto hers. His body was soaked, water dripping from his hair, pooling at his feet. He raised a hand, beckoning her. And Claire stumbled backward, her mind screaming at her to run. But the hum was in her head now, pulsating, drowning out everything else. She couldn't think, couldn't breathe. The man stepped forward, his body distorting, his form shifting in the darkness. He was no longer just a man, he was something else, something ancient and terrible, born of the sea. And Claire turned and ran, her feet slipping on the wet rocks as she fled up the beach. The hum followed her, growing louder, more frenzied. She could feel him behind her, his presence looming, his cold breath on the back of her neck. She reached the lighthouse, throwing herself against the door. It slammed shut behind her, and she collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. The hum stopped abruptly, leaving a deafening silence in its wake. Claire sat there, her back against the door, trembling. She didn't dare move, didn't dare make a sound. The lighthouse was her only refuge now, her only sanctuary from whatever was out there. But as she sat in the darkness, the silence became unbearable. Her thoughts raced, her heart beat loud in her ears. She had to know how to understand what was happening. With trembling hands, she picked up her flashlight and began to ascend the spiral staircase. Each step creaked under her weight, the sound echoing through the hollow structure. The air grew colder as she neared the top, the smell of salt and rot filling her nostrils. At the top of the stairs, she paused, her flashlight beam flickering. The door to the lantern room was cracked open, swaying gently in the wind. Taking a deep breath, Claire pushed it open. The room was empty. The lantern, long abandoned and rusted, sat in the center of the room. The windows were broken, allowing the cold sea breeze to whip through the room. But there was nothing else, no sign of the man, no sign of the hum. Claire stepped forward, her flashlight beam sweeping across the floor, and then she saw it. A small, waterlogged journal, lying in a pool of seawater. She knelt down, picking it up carefully. The pages were brittle, the ink faded, but she could just make out the writing. It was a captain's log dating back over 100 years. The entries were brief, detailing a routine voyage around the coast, but the final entry sent chills down her spine. May 12th, 1894. The fog is thick tonight. The crew is uneasy. There is something out there, something watching us. I can hear it in the water. A low hum, like the call of a siren. The men are losing their minds, one by one. I fear we will not make it to shore. The entry ended there, the rest of the pages too water-damaged to read. Claire's heart raced as she clutched the journal to her chest. The hum, the man, it was all connected. The island was cursed, haunted by the spirits of those lost at sea. Suddenly, the hum returned, louder than ever, vibrating through the walls of the lighthouse. Claire stumbled to her feet, her flashlight flickering wildly. The windows shattered, sending glass raining down around her. And then she saw him. The man stood in the doorway, his body twisting and contorting, his face a mask of rage. His mouth opened wide, wider than humanly possible, and the hum became a deafening roar. Claire screamed as he lunged at her, his cold, wet hands wrapping around her throat. She struggled, kicking and thrashing, but his grip was unrelenting. The last thing she saw before everything went black was his eyes, those hollow, lifeless eyes, staring into her soul.